just to say a few words about the book, Grains of Sand, that I've just recently reread. It's about the fall of Neve Dekalim in Gush Katic, one of the 21 towns. The book was written by a young a youth named Shifra Shomron, who lived in Neve Dekalim. And one of the things that really amazed me was what Shifra says in the preface to her book. She talks about the rockets, the many rockets that exploded all over Gush Katif, and that how none of the people had ever left Gush Katif because of these rockets. And for many long time after that, I thought about it, that it's really amazing that a young person should pay attention to that fact, because the most natural thing in the world for anyone to do when they're under rocket attacks is to run for dear life. And I think one of the things that Shifra expresses in her preface, but doesn't really go into detail about, is that the amazing, amazing thing that happened of how the people ended up staying in Gush Katif through all these rockets, and why was it that it happened, and what motivated them to happen. And I came to the conclusion, actually, that it was maybe God put super glue on the soles of their feet, on the soles of their feet or the soles of their shoes, to cause them to stay in Gush Katif in order to be able to see the many, many miracles that they had the privilege to see. And these miracles gave the youth and the families the strength to hold out during these 5 much more difficult years since the time that the people of Gush Katif were thrown out of Gush Katif. I should perhaps mention that my name is Anita Tucker, and I too lived in Gush Katif for close to 30 years, and was also one of those people who were expelled from my own town, Netzach Hazani. And I think one of the most amazing things that we see today is the tremendous faith that the youth, or the young people, have who lived in Gush Katif during these 5 difficult years. So I think that's why, even though I myself lived in Gush Katif, I really, really enjoyed reading this book, and I thought that Shifra had tremendous perspective.
Grains of Sand, The Fall of Neve Dekalim, affected me in many different ways. As a teenager living comfortably in my own community, I hardly believed that over 8,000 people could be expelled from their homeland in 2005, after more than a quarter of a century of life and growth. I knew that behind the character of Efrat was a real member of this community, Shifra, the author, a teenager, not much older than myself, who struggled to come to terms with the loss of everything she once knew and loved. Efrat described the vivid beauty of Neve Dekalim, and it was sad to know that this was a girl who in many ways was born out of Shifra's own experiences. The story made me feel sorrow that something like this could even happen. I began to realize that the destruction of Neve Dekalim would be an important story for my history project. I turned to songs to inspire me as I learned about the vibrant community of Neve Dekalim. Neve Dekalim was Israel's agricultural homeland. How can you not feel sadness for those living there? The greenhouse and geraniums, palm trees and paved streets, they were beautiful. It took so much time to grow and build, and only a few days to destroy it all. Grains of Sand inspired me to search for photographs and articles that chronicled the destruction of Neve Dekalim. The photos that shocked me the most were the ones that showed the destruction of the synagogues, because they were the spiritual heart of the community. I encouraged everyone to read Shifra's book. I think that they will want to learn as much as they can about Neve Dekalim and what was once a wonderful, thriving place. Shifra's book is a celebration of her community. I was fortunate to have the chance to ask Shifra some questions. I asked Shifra, what would she most remember about Neve Dekalim? She answered, the house, the gardens, the brick sidewalks, the sand dunes, the view of the sea in fair weather and storms, the sunsets and sunrises, the rain rushing past our house, flowing down the hill, and the fresh air. I started thinking, how can anyone get over this kind of loss? Could I? Could you?
My name is Jennifer, and I'm an English teacher in junior high and high school. So I'm going to tell what I enjoyed about reading Grains of Sand. I learned a lot from reading the book. I actually read it 2 times. It's my second time reading it. And I really enjoyed reading it because I thought it was a great history lesson. And it was a history lesson without getting very political. And it gave me a real peek into the lives of a modern Orthodox family and community in Neve Dekalim. I had never been there before, but I really enjoyed reading, and I could really visualize the neighborhood and the people and the warmth of the family. The book really helped me understand the struggles, internal and external, that the residents of Neve Dekalim had to deal with, not only during disengagement, but the time period leading up to it. As an educator, for me this book served 2 very important purposes. The first was, since it was written by a teenager, I found it very easy to read, very easy to understand, and it's definitely a book that I'll pass on to my teenage students. The second thing that it did for me was it truly helped me understand my students who went through the trauma of disengagement. So I definitely think that by reading it, it will help me become a much better teacher also. One of my favorite things about the book was the poem, Grains of Sand. In fact, when I finished reading the book, I went straight back to the beginning just to reread the poem. I really enjoyed that. Also, the maps and the photographs were a very nice addition. Helped the reader really visualize what we were talking about in losing the area of Gush Katic. One of the points that Shifra had made in her book, near the end of the book, was about escapism and how she did other things to help her deal with the whole process of the leading up to the disengagement. It was something that I think that I really did during the whole process too, even though I wasn't one of the people living in Gush Katic. I really didn't deal with it before, during, or anytime soon after. So I have such a much better understanding now of what happened and what people really went through, and how traumatizing it was and still could be for a lot of the people who lived there. So I think it's a very important book for everyone to read. Will definitely help us understand things, not past history that happened a long time ago, but things that happened recently and God willing won't happen again. And I hope that everyone will enjoy reading the book as much as I did. And I borrowed the book from my school library, and I'll make sure that my students check it out also.
עד כאן, ישראל וגם כאן. חבל קטיף ימשיך וילך בנתיב של תורה ואחדות ישראל. כאן זו ארץ ישראל.